It's time to get you caught up with all things sports.
Yes! 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 Yes!
On the throw-in.
One thing is certain. None of this is possible without you, the listeners.
From baseball, football, wrestling, and more, covering local Cincinnati sports stories, news, and highlights.
Why is he always calling me meat?
With your host, Justin Trento.
When this all said and done, we're going to look back and remember this is what started it all.
Available on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
Good play the ball! Good play the ball! Yeah!
Alrighty, well, what is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of The Throw-In. Tonight it is Tuesday, January 16th of 2023. I'm glad to be with you guys, and happy belated Martin Luther King Day. A lot of places were off of school, I know that. Man, we got through a weekend. Been dealing with a stomach virus here lately. And it really just has been just bugging me. I got through Saturday's show and it went downhill from there. Was gonna do a show yesterday, but I didn't because of the stomach virus that I was dealing with. But I am feeling better. I'm feeling a lot better than I did yesterday, and I'm feeling a lot better than I did, especially over this weekend. So that's that. You know what? Other than that, I mean, just enjoyed a lot of football that we will talk about this tonight. A lot of football. And let's just go ahead and just take a moment and just kind of give ourselves a round of applause that 2/3 of the AFC North that went and entered in to the playoffs this year got eliminated over the weekend. The Browns and the Bills. I wouldn't say the Browns and the Steelers, excuse me. I wouldn't say the Steelers got blown out, but that game definitely separated itself throughout, as it got later and later. But the Browns really just looked like they didn't show up, which was a little shocking because there was a lot of these games I really expected good matchups. When it comes down to sports, or like baseball, football, hockey. Why is hockey for me for some reason so entertaining? Because majority of the time it is nice and compact. It's 2-1, 1-0. They go in overtime. They go into a shootout. There's a lot of competitiveness inside hockey, and I'm not saying that football or baseball or professional wrestling isn't competitive. But I just like to see good competition. And unfortunately, to say about the Super Wildcard Weekend this past week, I didn't necessarily see a whole lot of great competition. We saw a lot of blowouts. And, I didn't necessarily watch the start to finish from every single game. Like the Browns and Texans, I kind of tuned in and out. But then when it kind of got out of hand, I was like, I'm just not interested. Saturday, there was 2 games. And you knew the biggest pet peeve that I had heading into Saturday's 2 games was the Dolphins and the Chiefs. Because there were so many, it was such a cold game. I just don't understand. Knowing the weather report well in advance, prior to, you know, prior to the game, knowing that it was going to be -3 and it's going to feel like -30, why jeopardize putting fans, putting staff members, putting your athletes in that situation? In Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area, throughout this past week, it's gotten really frigid. Not so much of snow, it's just really cold. Not as cold as Kansas City, but we're in what? We're in the teens, maybe in the single digits to say. And today, and I haven't been feeling good, so I haven't been outside. But today, I actually went outside today, and I was maybe outside for 5 minutes. I come home, I walk up the stairs where it's nice and 68 or 70 degrees, and I'm, my glasses are frozen. I had to wipe them off twice. I've noticed, like, you go outside for even just like 2-3 minutes, and I'm like, I'm getting a migraine just because of the temperature difference. And I was reading an article earlier today that was reported, and I sent it to myself because I wanted to make sure I read this to you. This is coming from CBS reporter Austin Division. About 6 hours ago, he reported in an article that the Chiefs-Dolphins wildcard game, 15 fans hospitalized, dozens treated for hypothermia symptoms per report. And I was reading throughout this article that I was reading, apparently the Kansas City, according to Fox 4 in Kansas City's fire department said emergency responders received dozens of calls relating to hypothermia and frostbite. There were a total of 70 calls to the first responders, and about half of those were due to the health issues caused by the dangerous cold temperatures. They round up being 15 people taken to the hospital, 7 of them getting treatment for hypothermia, and 3 more for them for frostbite. So I just don't, you had an opportunity to relocate to a neutral site. A lot of people were out there throwing in, well, why don't you go up to Indianapolis? Or why don't you push it back a day or two? We saw the Bills and Steelers game that was supposed to be 1:00 Eastern time out in up in Buffalo on Sunday. That got pushed back to 4:30. They had fans, they were paying fans to head out to the stadium and shovel snow to help them clear off for the game. And I guess for me, I can't, yes, I can blame the NFL for not sincerely considering their options wisely. Because like I said, you're putting everyone at risk. Someone could die. And if anyone, something tragic would happen to anybody during this game or because of this game, I feel like the National Football League, there would be a lot of people looking at the National Football Leagues. Now, on the second thought, listen, no one made these fans go to the game Saturday night. Nobody made these fans go to the game. If it was me personally, understanding the condition, it is one's health that is more important than a football game. And so when you have fans at Arrowhead Stadium or GEHA Stadium, that is, you are sold out. And you're tailgating, whatever the case may be. You are taking it upon yourself. You're taking on the risk that you put on yourself when you enter in something as frigid as that. So I think that there is a fine line between, between Yeah, the NFL should take accountability. You had the opportunity to relocate. This wasn't a last minute. This wasn't a last minute weather alert. This wasn't, oh, well, we're just gonna see where we're at. You had days, if not a week, to prepare because it was on the radar. It executed, successfully. And I just hope that everyone is okay from that game. To me, the Kansas City Chiefs are in the same category, in my opinion, as the Los Angeles Dodgers. I know, and it's kind of hard. Well, you're comparing football to baseball, and you just shouldn't do that. Well, if you look at the Dodgers and their successful rate over the last decade, right, winning championships after divisions after divisions, and one thing that we've started to notice the last 2 years is that playoffs in Los Angeles for the Dodgers aren't as large, or they're not always sold out as much as it was 10 years ago, because they're such a successful team. It's like, all right, well, if we miss a game, it's a series, first of all. So if we do miss a game, oh, okay, well, then that's fine. If we don't catch them next year, guess what? I know they're going to be in the postseason next year. If I don't catch them this year, they're going to be in next year. They're going to be in the year after that, so on and so forth. Kansas City has had a nice dominant record lately, last couple of years. They've had a pretty nice playoff run. Now, yeah, they're ranked number 3, and in order for them to have another home games this postseason, they will need Houston Texans to beat the Baltimore Ravens. But I'm also maybe, asking, hey, there's going to be another Kansas City Chiefs home game in the postseason that you can attend to that ain't going to be as frigid out here. So, I don't know, that was just something that really bothered me over the weekend. Despite the fact that, hey, you could only see it on Peacock, which I thought that was annoying. I mean, and I get it that they, you already took Amazon, Thursday Night Football away because of Amazon, and now you want to take a postseason. I mean, I've heard it all, across the board throughout the entire weekend. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised in the next 10 years we find the Super Bowl on a pay-per-view at the rate we're going, unfortunately. So it really bugged me a lot. But you know what? I had Peacock. I have it for wrestling, and I'll watch movies off of there. And it's not a bad product, but things like this for me for the longest time has been accessible to the public. And it's the same thing that goes with, the television rights for like baseball. I have Hulu TV, and I don't get the streamings to the Cincinnati Reds. I also receive the MLB at bat, and because I'm local, I don't get the Cincinnati Reds games. So even if they're on the road, and unless I don't get it regardless, I'd get all the out of market games, which means also I don't get games played on ESPN or Fox, whatever. So it's frustrating because reality, we're gonna head down that route, but in all honesty, it's just I'm not ready to be there just quite yet. But overall, this wild card weekend, the past few days, was not all that exciting for me. There's some big stories that have came out of it, that we'll get into the conversation about the Dallas Cowboys, who that lost in front of their hometown after a wonderful season, they will say. The Steelers lost, the Browns lost, so kudos to Houston and to Buffalo that, hey, they knocked out the AFC North. And, I'm not trying to be the, you know, the, salty person of, hey, yeah, how you guys lost. No, I mean, it was, I think, at least for Pittsburgh, it was a good battle. I think the only game that really stuck with me that I liked from start to finish had to be the Rams and the Lions, and it came down to 1 point. So a lot of football conversation in this program. We'll talk a little bit about baseball as the Reds have some news. And then we'll get into WWE as we're less than 2 weeks away from the Royal Rumble. And Seth Rollins possibly has an injury that we don't know the fate of his future as we await later on this week. Hopefully we get some answers. So interesting kickoff to this week as we get ready for divisional round, as we get ourselves into more baseball conversation and all that fun stuff. So if you guys are watching us, thank you. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Don't forget to have those notifications on so you don't miss a single episode. Hey, listen, I understand if you guys are podcast listeners, these episodes are being very delayed. I've had a lot on my plate last week with getting the stomach bug. I haven't really been able to focus. Therefore, I have just honestly I got, I'm catching up on those. So a lot of that is expected to take place over the next 24, 48 hours right now as I get better. So expect podcasts. But hey, if you miss anything on our on our show, head over to our website at www.tncsportstalkshow.com, where you can find all of our latest videos, blogs. You can find all of our, social media accounts, our merchandise page, anything, you name it. Head on over to www.tncsportstalkshow.com. We have a wonderful show planned for you this evening. It is nice and cold, but I got the heater blasting, and I'm looking to have some fun with you guys. So stick around because the throw-in will continue coming up next. Alrighty. Well, before we continue, we want to give a big shout out and thank you to StreamYard Studios, the proud home of the Throw-In and the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel, where you could create podcasts, videos, host virtual business meetings, and even conduct interviews. The proud home of the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel from day one, as we welcome back here to another episode of The Throw-In. For more information, check out StreamYard.com. My wife made some chili. She's a really good cook. She's a very, very picky eater, but she's a outstanding cook. She loves to be creative in that kitchen. She'll cook. She wants to learn how to bake. She'll like I said, tonight she made some chili. Cold weather provides a nice warmth meal. And I got to tell you that, she didn't eat it, but I've had 4 bowls. And for stuff that, if you consider basically over the past weekend, I haven't been able to keep things down necessarily. It's been kind of just going straight through me or coming back up. I've had myself 4 bowls in the last, 6 hours. So I'm interested to see how the night pans out here. As so far so good. but we will see. So tonight I want to go ahead and just kick things off talking about the Super Wildcard Weekend. Because trust me, there's a lot to discuss. A lot of blowouts. And I think what other better way to do a blowout is to kick things off with the first game, which was the Cleveland Browns and the Houston Texans. Now, as I give you my thoughts on this game, first of all, congratulations to the Houston Texans. It is not an easy. No, I don't think it. Not only no one expected them to have such a successful season they have had. And for me, they're one of those underdogs where if the next time they lose and they get eliminated from the postseason, you have to hang your hat on, hang your head up high because you've done a lot of things that no one expected you to do, from drafting a rookie quarterback and bringing in a first-time head coach, leading you to the postseason that came right down to the week 18, and then to beat the Cleveland Browns, who had probably more of a consistent year. And I think this game particularly, because there is no stipulations, I would say, in this matchup, right? Indoors, NRG Stadium, it's always fantastic weather in Texas, right? You had no problems. The weather was fine. So what could possibly go wrong? And I think is just a perfect image about momentum being carried off into the playoffs. The Cleveland Browns kind of sat back and watched week 18 roll by because they were looking ahead to the Texas Rangers. And I think that was the same mindset that they had for the Texas Rangers. And they were thinking about, all right, I'm going to either go play the Bills or the Chiefs in the divisional round. They weren't ever thinking about taking care of the Texans. I think they walked in expecting to have themselves just a blowout. Texans also had that motivation because not only they had a win 2 weeks ago on a Saturday night, and then they had to sit on their hands just to find out if they were in the postseason and where they were going to position. But they got nothing to lose on the table. Houston Texans had nothing to lose, win or lose. And when you have nothing to lose, you can simply go on to, give your best effort. Because if you lose, you go home, hey, you were the AFC South champions, and you've done things that no one quite expected you to do this season. So what does this mean for the Browns? Well, they go home, right? And they have to think about, well, maybe next time, if there is a next time, because Deshaun Watson's back, will hopefully be back. Most likely Joe Flacco will not be on the squad, but and you think about Joe Flacco for a moment, his redemption tour was fine and dandy while it lasted. Unfortunately, it did not lead into anything more than what it was, because we could have simply saw a Flacco and Ravens reunion. But congratulations to the Texans as they beat the Browns 45-14. They will head over to Baltimore to face the number 1 seed this Saturday at 4:30 on ABC. That is going to be first game this weekend that we get to watch. And I think this is going to be a good game to watch. And just early thoughts. We'll see, if Houston could pull it off twice. But regardless, Houston has nothing to lose. So I think I expect them to see nothing but the best out of them. Now we get into the next AFC game on Saturday, and that's covering the Miami Dolphins and the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, besides the weather, besides the what it was aired on, I think that there is one may argue that Kansas City or that Miami could have used the excuse that it was too cold. We were not prepared. If I was Miami, I would have spent all week playing in this weather to prepare. My thing is with Miami is that this playoff game kind of just proved to me what type of team Miami was. They were a team that can beat poor teams and take care of team play, other opponents that were under 500. But when it came down to games that matter, to against opponents that were actually equal to better than them, they couldn't get the job done. It was that simple. And I don't know, they have a lot of going back in this offseason and learning to do, trying to reestablish themselves, because now they're going to have to prove to the NFL next season that they could get the job done with winning teams. And how do you correct that? Well, that's Miami's problem to have to figure that out. The real question was coming from the victorious Kansas City Chiefs, who seemed to me that they had themselves such a better, solid game this time that they had all season long. One of the struggles that Kansas City has was being synced together. Well, were they synced enough together to win this game? And a lot of people point towards Kansas City's defense that kind of held them together, only allowing 7 points, which is really good. Turning the ball over a few times, which is also beneficial. But we talked about this last week. Is Kansas City capable of turning the switch on and off just like that? To okay, this is the regular season compared to playoff mode. And so when I don't know if we quite got the answer we were looking for. But they lived to fight another day, and now they head to Buffalo next Sunday night, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time against CBS. The number 3 seed taking on the number 2 seed. It's not going to be as frigid out there in Buffalo, although it still will be cold. And we're going to see, and I feel like, coming up between the Chiefs and the Bills now, you see such an equalizer that this can honestly go both ways. And we're going, this is what football is all about. This is why it's so exciting. But is Kansas City, did they turn on that switch? And if so, we should be able to see it next week while they go on the road to Buffalo, and they should take care of business as usual. But the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Miami Dolphins 26-7. We get down to the last AFC game, which was supposed to take place Sunday afternoon at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Instead, it was postponed to Monday. And that's the Steelers and the Buffalo Bills. I don't quite believe that, the Steelers really had any. I mean, they know this territory. It's been a while, but they know postseason territory. And they know what they're up against. Now, what kind of got me questioning throughout this game was I understood the concept heading into the game. You start the quarterback that has the most momentum leading forward. And right now that was Mason Rudolph. But when you have backup quarterbacks that could fill in that spot, that could fill in that role like, Kenny Pickett, I was surprised not to see the Steelers go for him midway through. You have that talent, you have the capability. Why didn't you give him a shot, even if it was a drive or maybe, third down? You have two, I will say, decent talent quarterbacks that I just question if, their decision making was a bit off. The Buffalo Bills look like the Buffalo Bills, all like they have all season long. And this basically, because the Steelers was trailing them, but they kept in it for a majority of the game. The Bills won the game because of experience. They won the game because they knew that they know how to finish a football game, especially in the postseason. Something that this new Steelers team is not familiar on a year in and year out basis. So when we come down to this coming up Sunday, when the Chiefs come in, not only we want to see if the Chiefs can sync together again and they just, like I said, turn on that switch, but we're also seeing the Bills needing to complete another game. And that's what helped the Bills run off. Now, was it also that pick six late, halfway through the second half that kind of helped extend that lead? Yes. Which is now you're going back. It's going to be the Kansas City defense versus the Bills defense. And that's fine by me. I would love to see a good matchup, a defensive matchup in this hand. The Buffalo Bills beat the Steelers 31-17 yesterday, Monday night, Martin Luther King Day, to advance to the divisional round. So the AFC has shapen up. I feel like the three of the four, or basically all the home teams have won. You have three of the four teams I would say we're not surprised of seeing. And then we're also seeing the Houston Texans, which, like I said, if their season ends this Saturday, no harm, no foul, we'll be going into the offseason. You can always find room for improvement. But you know what? I'm excited to see, they have confidence heading into next year. All right. When we come back, let's go ahead and give our thoughts into the NFC, because that's a whole nother story. You guys are listening to The Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. I want to go ahead and just remind people. I kind of said this last week that sometimes our show production. Now, if you guys are just actually tuning us in for the first time, we have from 5 days a week cut down to 3 days a week. The original schedule is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but we are allowed the room for things like me not feeling good. Maybe there's just not enough sports to cover in one night that we need to push it back a day. So like we're doing today, I'm hoping to do one tomorrow and then take Thursday off so we could come back on Friday. Last week we saw Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday morning. I get, between family and daytime obligations, basically how I feel. This is kind of taken a little bit of a workload off of me, and so that I can really just focus in on giving you as good of a content as possible. Because isn't that what it's all about? Why why we're doing this show? So you guys can listen to sports, my opinions, my takes, and news that I think redeems solid enough for you guys, the listeners. So, and one thing I do want to just reiterate is that if I don't do, sometimes one of the reasons I also wouldn't be able to do a show is right now it's 20 degrees outside. It probably feels like 5 or 6 degrees. So if, the simple power outage, Wi-Fi, internet connection doesn't hold up, I wouldn't be able to put on a product. So that would be also another reason why we wouldn't be able to put on a show. But like I said, hey, head on over to our website, www.tncsportstalkshow.com, and just stay tuned. We are not the greatest at it, but we do update our website quite periodically. All right, let's talk about the NFC wildcard weekend. And like I said, this entire week, there was only one game that really pointed out to my attention, and that is the Rams and the Lions. But before we could get to that, we got to talk about the heavy topic between the Packers and between the Cowboys. Because the biggest news coming out of this game should be about Jordan Love. Should it be about how impressed we are for a backup quarterback that had to watch a future Hall of Famer leave, struggle for the first half of the season, and then lead his team to the postseason, and to beat the number 2 seed in the wild card game. The number 2 seed that proclaimed that they are here to make a statement, that this year was their year. And for 3 consecutive years, they got knocked out of the playoffs. And this time, probably the most embarrassing faction, as you lose 48-32 in front of your hometown. And, like I said, we'll probably find some as we move closer to the back end of this week. We'll talk plenty about the Green Bay Packers. But I think, like I said, the biggest story that should have been the Packers is the Dallas Cowboys. Because obviously Jerry Jones isn't so happy about all this. I wouldn't be. I think what is more, every year, it seems like it's just a trend that every year you see the Cowboys lose in the playoffs, and then you go into your social media and you see all of these memes and clips making fun of the Cowboys. I have a friend that is a Cowboys fan, and I had to heckle them quite a bit because and share some of those memes, and it's unfortunate. The Americans team struggles and still cannot get over the hump. One thing that I've learned from the Cowboys is that you just can't bet on them until they could prove you otherwise. Forget about what they could go 17-0 in the course of a season, and I still will not take them in a postseason matchup, even if it's against the Carolina Panthers. For some reason, it might as well be a curse that the Cowboys lose each and every year. And where do you start pointing fingers? Dan Quinn? Mike McCarthy? Dak Prescott? I hear it all the time on the Herd because that's one of my audio listening shows that I go to, that Colin Cowherd compares Dak Prescott to Kirk Cousins. And I don't know the whole comparison rating, but Dak doesn't have a good argument to fight against it. At some point, someone has to be held accountable for all of this failure over the last 3 years. And so what does the, and so I think the bigger question heading into this situation, understanding that, hey, we once again lost in the playoffs, is that does Jerry Jones make a decision? Now, from my understanding, he absolutely loves Dak Prescott. And from my understanding, Dak Prescott has at least one more year on his contract that's worth at least $60 million. So unless you're going to renegotiate his contract, I don't see you can move on from him. Could you pretend? And that's the other problem. Is the problem Dak Prescott, or is it the coaching? Well, if it's the coaching, well, now the Cowboys become another team that could be looking for a head coach. And the two top coaches right now are Jim Harbaugh, which is number one. And I'll talk about Jim Harbaugh here at the top of the hour and give you an update on that. But then you also consider Bill Belichick. Is Mike McCarthy the head coach for the Cowboys? And he showed me, and I'm not bashing the guy, but obviously you just can't get the job done. So what do? What changes can be made? How do you improve? And I think we turn back around to the contract of Dak Prescott. $60 million is a huge chunk that you cannot go add on players. So bye-bye CeeDee Lamb. That experiment failed. But where are Cowboy fans? Where are the Cowboys alone pointing fingers at, saying this is what we did wrong, this is where we screwed up, and this is what we need to fix? Cowboys get embarrassed in hometown, 48-32. Trust me, it's going to be the topic, the number one story heading into the offseason. All right. The game that I think was the most enjoyable of them all had to be the Rams and the Lions. I mean, this is where a few years ago they decided to swap quarterbacks. Right? You saw the Lions give the Rams Matthew Stafford. He was just a average Joe Lucky QB. Jared Goff, who could not get the job done in LA, and as a young quarterback in the playoffs, went to Detroit. Right away, we see Matthew Stafford in his first year come up and win a Super Bowl with the Rams. And now we see, after a long waiting period, the Lions finally make it to the postseason and beat the Rams. Now, this was a close one, and you know what? You can argue calls all you want. And trust me, I'm a part Rams fan. When the Chargers up and abandoned San Diego to go to Los Angeles, that was my farewell chance to say sayonara. I'm jumping to Stan Kroenke and the Rams. And in my opinion, until Jim Harbaugh signs the dotted lines for the Chargers and take them to win a Super Bowl, I would always say that the Rams are the better team out of those two in Los Angeles. My opinion. But you have such a sentimental value. You have such a story from the Lions that you almost feel like they have to be the glue. There has to be the storyline of this year's Super Bowl. They almost, to me, become a fan favorite to attend the Super Bowl against any team in the AFC. Now, I still predict going back to San Francisco and Baltimore, but the Rams have just really now, I think, has touched the world. This is probably in my opinion, this is the nation's team to go all the way. The Lions beat the Rams 24-23. That went down an emotional game. Rams dominated the second half, and I don't know if, the Rams will actually be hosting Tampa Bay on Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern time, game 1 on NBC. And I don't know how long Detroit can hold on and allowing those little mistakes to happen again. If they do not figure out their second half in the postseason, then I don't know how much longer they could hold on to a postseason run. But right now, they are my fan favorite. And right now, I think, and I hope that they are the nation's fan favorite. All right, the last and final game here was the Philadelphia Eagles, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the 4 and 5 seeds heading off to Monday Night Football, which is that strange addition, but it stretches out the playoffs and viewership. And Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield came in, handled business against the Eagles 32-9, and they go on to Detroit for this Sunday to take on the Lions. And when I think of this, I think of Baker Mayfield can finally sit here and maybe sit back and laugh at the Browns. I know we mentioned this last week. Who needed the win more? The Browns or the Texans? The Browns needed the win more because this was the year that they needed to prove to Cleveland and to the NFL and to Baker Mayfield that this deal of letting Baker Mayfield go 2 years ago, signing Deshaun Watson to a contract, having him serve a 2/3 of a season suspension, was not a waste of time or money. And they failed. Baker Mayfield probably would like to forget all what happened last year, and I wouldn't blame him. This was the year where you get a new start and with a new team. And yes, he may have had some big shoes to fill, but he ain't doing too bad for himself. Now he's not making spotlight news like Patrick Mahomes or CJ Stroud. He's just he's your guy who's laying under the radar, who is taking care of business, and he's playing to prove that, hey, do not overlook me. And he took care of business, ending the Eagles playoff run, who once held, this was the Super Bowl, they were the NFC championships last year. There are going to be some questions in Philadelphia between Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. One of the probably touchiest things is that Travis Kelce tells teammates he's retiring after his loss. And I think that's a bit emotional. Let's say. I mean, he's been definitely in the forefront of news as of the last few years, most likely probably thanks to his brother. I sure have not have heard from him. But you know what? Since hearing his name, and I'm always a fan favorite of offensive linemen, I think they don't get enough credit for what's done, especially those centers. He has really earned my heart, and I think a lot of fans' heart outside of Philadelphia. So if this is really it for him, I understand, and I appreciate all the work that he's put in and everything that he's done. And I think a lot of, if you are an offensive lineman right now in high school, right, playing football, this is someone that you may want to go back and watch tape on, because he's an inspiration to his position, to the game, and to the nation. Talking about other news, there's been rumors and reports about Mike Tomlin. He has one more year left with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I know there was an incident the other day, actually last night after they lost. The final question was what was his plans. He just stayed quiet, walked off the podium, and from the latest update on that news, Mike Tomlin tells the Steelers he is returning for next season. Those guys, and I take a Mike Tomlin over a Bill Belichick any day of the week. In my take. So, hour number 1 is completed. Let's come on back for hour number 2. We got a lot more sports to talk about: baseball, wrestling, what's going on. One of my wrestling questions I want to talk about. We're going to play at the end of hour number 2 the what if factor. Because maybe we're looking at the road to WrestleMania a little bit wrong. So come on back. Hour number 2 begins here right after this break. You guys are listening to The Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. All right. Let hour number 2 begin. Welcome on here to hour number 2 on the program. Before we get started, I want to go ahead and give a big shout out and a thanks to Spreaker. Spreaker is much more than just an audio listening app. Spreaker.com provides podcasters to upload their podcast episodes to all major audio platforms, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and much more. You'll be able to download, be able to modify, monetize, and view analytics, and get paid out for the podcast that you work and the people that listen to your product. Check out their website today at Spreaker.com for all your information. So far, so good. Don't you just love when things roll into place? Got the vibe going, the heater going. It's not cold in here. Just drink a Rockstar this late at night. So I want to go ahead and give you guys an update on the head coaching positions. And this is only going to really focus ourselves around on 2 major head coaches. You know, now, before I get into that, there's 2 teams that really carried hype throughout the season this year in the NFL, but really had nothing to show for when it came down to the wild card game this past week. One was the Miami Dolphins. And like I said, you can go ahead if you want and blame the weather. But at the end of the day, they couldn't beat the Kansas City Chiefs, who were struggling to sync with each other during the regular season. Now, are the Chiefs that good? Are they just able to turn it off like a light switch? Like I said, that testimony will not really be discovered until this coming up Sunday, where they face the Buffalo Bills. But, you know, Dolphins came into the season and they were just going through one opponent over the other until we noticed that when it came down to playing against teams with winning records back end of the season, in the dog days when it really mattered, they couldn't get the job done. It's one of the reasons why they fell out of the AFC East division. They had to settle for a wild card spot, and yet they couldn't do it with the Chiefs. The other team had to be the Dallas Cowboys. They had a couple good blowouts. They try to sit there and say, hey, we're making a statement. We're coming after you. And you know what? You fooled me. The Dallas Cowboys actually fooled me. They came in, they handled business, finished off with a 12-5 record, overcame the falling apart Eagles, and they won the NFC East. And they should have probably beat the Green Bay Packers, according to what their record throughout the season looked like. But they had nothing to show for it when they got into the game, and they're probably the two most disappointing teams in the wild card weekend. But all right, so from our understanding, there is now a possibility, depending on how Jerry Jones goes about this route, that Jim Harbaugh, that they may be looking for another head coach. And with that being said, Jim Harbaugh is on the top of that list, and you know that. Matter of fact, any team who's looking for a new coach, head coach, potential head coach, should at least do their due diligence in reaching out or attempting to reach out to Jim Harbaugh, because he's on that top of the podium. He is the number one head coach. He has a package plan that I think cannot be beaten up. And if you're any team, you dig into your team's financial funds that you don't have to snag a coach like Jim Harbaugh. Let's look at that package plan real quick. He's a coach who just got done winning a championship, national championship out of Michigan. He knows a lot of the players from Michigan that are still yet to come up. He knows about the talent that's coming up through Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Maryland. I mean, he has his connection. He has his ties. He's built relationships, because as a college football coach, that's what you do. And so any team, any professional team who hires and is able to snag Jim Harbaugh, they're snagging not just a coach that was successful in the NFL towards the end of his run, like he did with the 49ers. He's been to the Super Bowl, but he changed a program of Michigan, took them to a championship, won a championship with them. If he's coming back to the NFL, he's obviously wanting to win the Super Bowl. He has the connections down below. He has the draft picks. He knows who to steer away from, who's to pick from. If you're, a matter of fact, and I would go out and just say this on a limb, all 32 teams should at least made a phone call to Jim Harbaugh. That's how big Jim is meaningful right now to the NFL. The Chargers, apparently, according to reports, has met with Jim over the weekend. And the moment that the Dallas Cowboys, the moment that the Dallas Cowboys lost, Jerry Jones should have made a direct flight to Los Angeles to hunt down Jim to get him in a meeting. Because to be honest, does the Cowboys, the second best option right now could be Bill Belichick. And hell, and maybe in a couple weeks, we may see Mike McCarthy or Dan Quinn become head coaches. And if you're asking me personally, I wouldn't necessarily hire them. They wouldn't be my top pick to hire as a head coach. Not saying that they wouldn't go on a good team. They wouldn't be selected to coach at all. I just wouldn't put neither one of them as a head coach right now, especially seeing after what they performed over the weekend. But Bill Belichick is, here's the report on Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick has also met with the Atlanta Falcons earlier this week. So if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you're trying to make this decision very quickly, because your limits, your head coaching limitations are very slim to none. If you are reaching out to Jim, reach out to Jim, get a meeting within, the next day or two, and let's see if you could work out a deal. But then I don't know if Jim comes in and says, all right, I want Dak out. And if you can make that happen. If you know what is to come with the future of the Cowboys, if Dak doesn't renegotiate his contract and you take this financial hit, you may not want to go with the Cowboys. You want structure. You want to build and establish and build from your own. I mean, Jim Harbaugh is going to want to bring in his coaches, bring in his players, and win you a championship that way. Bill Belichick is going to want an establishment and will want to discipline. And so he would need the freedom to do so. Doesn't want $60 million contract players to run around thinking that they're headshots and they can't perform. But all I could tell you right now is, like, as I mentioned, I still believe Jim and Bill are on the top of the podium when it comes down to head coaches. And it looks like they're starting to look at teams that could potentially be their next landing spots. So as we now start painting our picture in our head where this is starting to unravel in the NFL, those are big steps to fill in. Before we continue, I want to go ahead and congratulate the Cincinnati Bearcats this evening as they beat TCU, who is ranked number 19 in the AP poll. They beat them 81-77 at home, leading it to their first Big 12 victory at home. Congratulations to Cincinnati Bearcats. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Cincinnati Reds. A couple of things have kind of transpired over the last couple of days. Coming in actually today, the Reds decided to part ways and trade Daniel Duarte to the Rangers for cash consideration to make room for Brent Sutter on the 40-man roster. And I don't have a problem with this trade. I don't have a problem with what they're trying to do. Brent is a pitcher, left-handed pitcher that I think we need desperately. And, we've seen Daniel Duarte over the last few years. And I think, you bring in a fresh guy, a fresh look to the 40-man roster. He battles out to make it to the main roster on opening day, and you're looking good. So we wish Daniel Duarte the best of luck and, with the Rangers. And listen, the Rangers just got done winning the World Series with Bruce Bochy, and I think they're looking to continue their dominance in Texas. So we can see Daniel Duarte hopefully have his success out there. Cincinnati Reds are also just 40 days away from their first spring training game. Get pretty excited as they get ready to take on the Cleveland Guardians. And, we're just counting down the days and the news and stories. But the Reds have also had one of the biggest questions that lead out of the Reds is that they have the trade rumor. What do you do with Jonathan India? Does he stay on this team throughout the duration of spring training? And is he a collateral for what you may need come trade deadline? Or do you take the chance and, if the offer is right, if the money's correct, do you go for a trade now? Now, a report leaked out that if the rumors of putting Jonathan India on a trade spot, the Reds would be looking at a couple of pitchers, Dylan Cease or Shane Bieber. Now, we got to remind ourselves that, a lot of the reasonings why the Jonathan India trade is not so serious right now, because we are stacked in the infield. We could always use another at bat. but we could also use more pitching. You can never have enough good pitching. But when Jonathan India is and like I said, our infield is really stacked, our outfield's stacked heading into this season. We really don't have a role for India. Also, India, rejected his qualifying offer, so he's going to go down to arbitration here in the next few weeks, and he's asking for $4 million, and he's going to probably be settling for less. And that hopefully that doesn't rub the relationship between India and the Reds the wrong way. But if we're going to trade India, we're not looking to trade them for prospects, which is what most teams are looking to do at this moment. We need ball players that are ready to go right now, that have a few years in their prime and a few years under their belt with success. We look at Dylan Cease, Shane Bieber, and maybe I'd pass on Dylan Cease. I like more Shane Bieber, but that's just a personal opinion. I think a good recommendation, though, is potentially saying, okay, let's keep them throughout the year because injuries do occur. Let's see where we're at trade deadline with injuries, with players, or if they're performing, because we've had a great performance last season. But one thing that we have to look into this year is if these young guys like Ellie De La Cruz, Matt McLean, Christian Encarnacion Strand, Noel V. Marte, if they have improved during the offseason and they can continue the hype and their performance from last year. And when we get to the trade deadline, what are we looking for? Maybe we need more arms. Maybe Hunter Green went out. Maybe, maybe we need a couple guys in the bullpen. Maybe Jake Fraley went out. We need an outfielder. And then I would put him up on the market and see what offers, because you're going to have a little bit more range among teams who are also looking for a postseason run that needs that infield spot. It is going to be a tough pill to swallow when it does come, because I feel like it will be coming here, whether it's now, whether it's in 4 months from now or 5 months. We will be seeing potentially a deal working with Jonathan India. And that's just because where we are at right now with our roster. And it's all going to be based on our confidence. I'd play it safe. The Reds have played it safe from day one since last year, during the deadline where they didn't go pick up anybody. Why not continue playing it safe? We always follow Joey Votto's news. There's been reports that there's several teams looking and interested in him. Toronto, San Diego, Washington, Milwaukee's also a team. I hope he doesn't go to Milwaukee. But, Joey Votto, hopefully he finds a team that he can be an everyday contributor. He's a left-handed batter. He's looking not just to pick up 30, 40 games a season. He's looking to play a lot more as long as he's healthy. And Joey Votto is going to always be a Reds for us. And I think we're going to always appreciate that. So we'll let you know as much more as news comes in about Votto. Let's finish up on the Reds conversation on the back end of this break. Let's take a break. And we still have our thoughts of Monday Night Raw and some what-if stories to tell you. That all still to come here in hour number 2. You guys are listening to The Throne on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Yeah, there is a window for international prospect signing. I learn something new every day. I'm not really all that well in detail, and probably so because I haven't necessarily really. I mean, these are guys. The thing is with the international prospects is that they make it a big deal. They sign all these prospects, and maybe 1 out of 100 falls through the cracks. And you're just hoping that that one is in your organization. By the time that these guys really get a chance to look at Major League Baseball, at the Major League level, they kind of already been dealt or dealt with. But you know what? More Reds news as the Reds land outfielder Adolfo Sanchez, who is ranked number 5, and shortstop Nabil Mariano, ranked number 42 in the 2024 international prospect signing. According to sources, Sanchez is worth about $2.5 to $3 million. Mariano is worth about $1.5 million. No agreement has yet been set. So there's a lot of great conversation that we could probably talk into our blue in the face and saying how great is the outfielder that's ranked number 5, Adolfo Sanchez, is, and how great for the Cincinnati Reds to be able to pick up a player like Adolfo Sanchez from the Dominican Republic and give him an opportunity at becoming a Red Leg. But like I said, it's 1 in 100 that maybe breaks through into the league as someone special. And we're taking a chance off of that. The Padres signed the number 1 pick for the second consecutive year, as they picked up Leonidas de Vrias. And I actually saw that earlier this weekend in the news because I follow Padres baseball, former San Diego resident. So, I've been following that news. And I was like, all right, see it. I didn't really think too much into it. And I've been paying attention. I'm like, okay, what am I really going to talk about here? But, and then what came up to interesting is that the Mets, Vladimir Miguel Guerrero, the half-brother of Toronto's first baseman, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and the son of the Hall of Famer Vladimir Guerrero Sr., has agreed to $117,000 signing bonus to the New York Mets. And you get a chance to bank or to weigh in your odds. And listen, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has still a long way to go in the league. We know what his father has done. And when you see a Vladimir Guerrero on the table, I'm surprised the Reds didn't go after him. Thought that was just quite interesting. But, like I said, they're long ways away, and some of them will get big league opportunities. Some of them won't. Like I said, 1 in 100 will be a big star. I know Fernando Tatis is expected to be a big star, got the mega deal contract, and, hasn't got off to a great start. All right. So let's get down into some WWE conversation. Professional wrestling at its finest. And this is kind of where the fun just continues to roll. And before we could get really into what I want to talk about, we have to just kind of recap last night on Monday Night Raw. They were, from my understanding, in Little Rock, Arkansas. The main event was Seth Rollins versus Jinder Mahal, which I think was a great main event for the fact that we have not seen Jinder Mahal compete night in, night out on the main roster for a while. It is a bit concerning to me that Jinder could come back, argue, want a title match with Seth Rollins, and gets it immediately, when you have guys on the roster that may have earned themselves a title opportunity beforehand. So it didn't surprise me that the title was not being taken off of Seth Rollins, but there is now that concern. And it's going to be that fear concern from now until WrestleMania, just like it is everywhere else. But you want the storylines to pan out. You want everyone to have their moment heading into WrestleMania. Seth Rollins, who got hurt, doesn't look like it's too serious, but we really won't know until later this week. He got an MRI earlier today, so when the report comes back in, I'm sure we will be covering it. But Raw has this new look, and I quite like it. Now I did not necessarily watch Raw from start to finish. I don't even think I tuned it in. Like I said, I still was not feeling oh so well. But I kind of started watching some of the highlights today, getting into what we will be talking about. We saw Xavier Woods return, and you see a nice feud with Ludwig Kaiser and Xavier Woods. But I think the main focus on last night had to be the tag team division. You had like 4 tag team matches that included the Judgment Day, and you had new women's tag team champions. So let's congratulate Candice LeRae, Indy Hartwell, for winning last night, becoming new women's tag team champions. But DIY takes out JD McDonough and Dominic Mysterio in tag team action. That was really such a good match. And then Finn Balor and Damian Priest comes back and wins and defeats Awesome Truth. And you still have that kind of storyline. But, you know, the one thing that I really like, that I really saw that I enjoyed, was the use of the tag team divisions. And what you notice over a period of time is that we're seeing like DIY reunited. I like, Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae has been doing some incredible stuff. Basically everything that we've seen work in NXT, some that somehow got dismantled in the transition heading to the WWE, we're finally getting a chance to see correct itself. And one thing, and I'll point this out, the storyline last night was not about Cody Rhodes, was not about Seth Rollins and his title defense. And it was not about the Judgment Day. It wasn't even about CM Punk. It was about Drew McIntyre demanding attention, demanding respect, demanding to be acknowledged for the success he's had. That he confronted Cody Rhodes. He prevented Damian Priest from cashing in his Money in the Bank briefcase. And I saw that brawl with them too, and I'm like, dude, I can't wait to see a match. And as we head into WrestleMania, I think for the first time in my life, 15, 20 years watching wrestling, I've never been more excited to see the possibilities and feuds that can lead to WrestleMania weekend. 15, 20 years ago, yeah, there were guys like Chris Benoit and John Cena, Shawn Michaels, Kurt Angle, the Hardy Boys, CM Punk, The Undertaker, Triple H, Ric Flair, Batista, Rey Mysterio. And you could have put together a nice WrestleMania card. They've done so in the past. Between SmackDown and Raw right now, there is just so much great action going on. And it's a little bit of taste for something. And, you know, for the first time, I feel watching Raw, which used to be drilling to watch, a 3-hour product that lagged. Well, you're entertained from start to finish. There's always something going on. And I think, you know, it's still a work in progress, but they've done a lot better than what they've done in the past. And between the talent that we have on SmackDown and the feuds that we could potentially see with guys like LA Knight, AJ Styles, Austin Theory on SmackDown with Randy Orton, we can also see feuds on Raw steering, such as the Judgment Day, Drew McIntyre, you know, I mean, Sami Zayn hasn't been out in the air for a while. That you can almost put anyone up against anybody in that locker room, and it would be a compelling argument that you should sit down and watch that match. Think about that for a moment. You know, we know that the WWE is up on the uprise, but this is just yet again a proof. I am just soaking it in and reaping in the glory because it's something that we have desperately been calling for. But man, you know, it has always been, there's been a few things year in and year out that the WWE seems to have issues with when it comes down to their product. Tag team division, the women's division, and bringing talent up. They have never been able to have all three of those categories fulfilled at the same time. You know, when Women's Revolution was rising, we saw the lack of talent that was being promoted to be the next star. That came in next, right? We saw the Bella Twins. We saw Charlotte, Sasha, Becky, Bayley, you know, all start rising in the Women's Revolution. And then when they got up to their point, then we saw the men start getting up there, the Roman Reigns, the Seth Rollins, the Dean Ambrose, the Baron Corbin. Then when we saw that up there, then we started seeing the tag team, you know, division start crawling when they split the brands again. But not all three at the same time. You know, and I look at what we're watching today, and how can you not say the tag team division is not there? Both on SmackDown and Raw this past week has given incredible tag team opportunities. How can you say the women's division is not there? And we don't even have to see Charlotte Flair or Jade Cargill. You're doing it without Ronda Rousey. And then you can also not say that you're building up multiple talents. We had that conversation last week. All right, when we come back from our last segment of the night, I want to play some what ifs. What if we're looking at this road to WrestleMania all wrong with you? That continues here. You're listening to The Throne on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty. Well, we want to give a big shout out to Epidemic Sound. Discover your world-class artists, composers, and bands. Find the perfect soundtrack and give your social media accounts the music they deserve. Epidemic Sound is a royalty-free music link. And for more information, check out epidemicsound.com. Also want to give a big shout out to Canva, our commercial breaks and overlays. The cover to our video this afternoon is put together thanks to Canva. Great presentations, videos, social media ads, and more. Check out canva.com for more information. All right. So as we await to hear what the injury results are in for Seth Rollins, and I am not aware yet. Let me just double check here. Bleacher Report. I want to do that. All I know is a leg injury. So until we know more about that, I did also just read about an hour, according to Wrestling Observer, WWE confirms Cora Jade out of action with an ACL tear. Jade suffered an injury this past weekend. She'll be out of action for some time. And she actually is just one of those women who were actually expected, came back, had a great pop, great expectations, and kind of just, I think it really just hurts, because, it has to hurt a career, unfortunately, right? I mean, to get injured, to come back, and to get injured again, and now you're on the shelf and you see all these other, females working hard each and every day to climb it to the top. It's really devastating. Charlotte Flair just is 11 days out of her surgery on her knee. We'll probably be missing her. But let's play somewhat of the what if game here. You're like, well, what are we talking about? Well, there's a what if game. What if we're looking at the road to WrestleMania, the road to the Rumble, all wrong? There's this big story since day one that it's going to be Roman and Rock at Mania. And immediately following that, we're seeing Cody Rhodes being thrown into the picture, which he hasn't. Yes, he's been through feuds after feuds after feuds. And yes, I believe Cody Rhodes has earned his spot in line to challenge Roman Reigns for this title again. And as I hear other people weighing in their thoughts and their opinions, I just can't help but wonder if we're thinking this in a wrong direction. We're talking about the moves that it's going to be Rock and Roman in Australia. We're talking about Rock and Roman at Mania. We're talking about Cody and Roman at Mania again. We're talking maybe a triple threat match between Rock, Roman, Cody, and Roman at Mania. And we start thinking about that, and we can only speculate to think that The Rock has one more match, and one more match only. And, I don't want to not weigh in that option that there could be a part 2 or even a part 3 to a feud that has been at least addressed, that has still so much to tell. But if it's a one and done deal, don't you want the spotlight to be on Roman and Rock at Mania main event night 2? and not include Cody, because Dwayne's going to want that center spot attention, win or lose. And Roman deserves that center spot attention, win or lose. And I don't think anything else needs to be attached between Dwayne, Roman, Mania. I feel like that's the only story that needs to be told. So where do you go? Like I said, maybe we're thinking about this all wrong. But, there's going to be there's going to be a clear Royal Rumbles winner, and that winner is going to have the right to challenge either Roman or Seth, and depending on, it all depends on if Seth is still the champion. Then we're going to see a elimination chamber that we could only assume that's going to become the number one contender for the opposite champion. But let's play the what if. What if Cody's not ready to, what if the WWE is not ready to drop the title off of Roman yet? He's come this far ahead. He's about to surpass so many other records, Hulk Hogan, Triple H, whatever. And on top of that, what happens if they take the title, just put it to the side for this coming up year, so that they could focus in on Roman, Rock? You don't have any controversy of Roman winning and then having to lose against The Rock the next night or whatever. He wins both nights. I mean, and I think that's the only other logical idea, is that if you'd have Roman main event both nights, winning both nights, still carrying the title, you can't have him, because you wouldn't have Rock and Roman night one and then he drops the title night two. Doesn't seem logical to me. But what happens? But what if Cody Rhodes is not part of that WrestleMania picture this year? What if Cody Rhodes gets into a feud with Randy or somebody else that he's, maybe Drew McIntyre or something, and has to fight a whole nother year, to allow this story to get out of the way? Has Cody done enough to earn another title shot? Yes. I don't see him winning the Royal Rumble. I do not see him. I mean, I could see him win the Elimination Chamber if he enters. But it's interesting how, yes, they have told this story throughout the year without, I mean, they really only talked about it within like the first month. As a matter of fact, you know what? They talked about it through up until SummerSlam, because Brock Lesnar was his opponent. Brock Lesnar was the one who cost him, opportunities. But they didn't really mention a whole lot about the Cody Rhodes on this, on this mission to earn his title shot against Roman once again. And therefore, and they just recently started bringing this up again. And ironically, in my opinion, Cody is on Raw. Roman is on SmackDown. I think Cody would also have to go back through and defeat the Bloodline once again, in my opinion. I know this, this is all, I would say, hypothetical theory and thinking, but it is a possibility that we can see a complete different direction go down if, with Cody Rhodes heading into WrestleMania. There is still so many other opponents that he can have outstanding matches with. So what if? If you play the what if factor, I think it creates a little bit more of a mysterious type feeling that now we are uncertain what we could be seeing at WrestleMania. And what is the WWE really known for over the past years? Making fans think it's going to go one way and turning it back the other way. I just argue that Rock and Roman should only be that focus point in that storyline. I'm not saying that Roman can't handle either night, competing both nights, or can't handle two opponents. He's done it before. But I don't see it being beneficial for either one to have a triple threat match. I don't necessarily see a ideal plan on how you're planning on having Roman compete on night one and then compete on night two when you know you're going to have The Rock on night two with Roman. And if this is a one and done deal, you most likely put Roman over. Therefore, it doesn't make sense to take the title off of him the night before against Cody. And if you have Cody lose to Roman on night one, isn't that just yet again a waste of year? When you can simply put Cody with somebody else, maybe let CM Punk main event with Seth Rollins or whoever, and you may even want, depending on what we see from Seth Rollins, and I know I'm speaking a little prematurely because we don't know the result or any timetables or anything yet, but if you think about if Cody Rhodes does get taken out, we could potentially see a Cody Rhodes and Punk match because you may want to consider putting the title on Rhodes. But that also takes away from getting back to Roman, and that is his number one focus. What I've seen is now a feud lined up with Cody and Drew. You can use that for WrestleMania, which would be a really good match. You can use a Cody and Randy Orton feud at WrestleMania. That would be a really good match, in my opinion. So there's other options. If we're playing the what if Damian Priest ends up cashing out on Roman and is the one to defeat Roman? Why would Punk win the title to drop it the same night to Priest? And why would there be such a big build up and hype for Punk coming in and being a valid, credible candidate for winning the Royal Rumble to lose at WrestleMania or to win and then drop the title? To me, there's a lot of things that just doesn't make sense because Priest you'd think he'd maybe want to. But then you also keep that title reign pretty short if Punk does win. So what are the what ifs in your books? Let me know. I want to thank everyone for tuning into our product. We appreciate you. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Don't forget to head out to our website if you miss anything from this program, to www.tncsportstalkshow.com. We got another 2 episodes coming up this week, getting you guys ready for the NFL divisional round. So be sure to stay tuned and check out when our next show is coming up. On behalf of everyone on the TNC Sports Talk Show crew, we want to thank everyone and have a great night. Thank you guys for listening to The Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.